Boom! What's up, guys? Great to see you. Or I'm supposed to say you, not guys, no plurals.
Why?
You're supposed to talk to them like they're like individuals.
Oh, that's a YouTube rule.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's a YouTube rule.
Okay, no plurals.
No
plurals.
It's one person at the end of the
Okay,
camera. So
got it.
you,
No plurals allowed in this interview. I got it. Thank you for teaching me so much.
Oh. Okay, well, first off, dude, I wanted to, I had like a whole like series of questions like in my mind.
And here we are.
Oh, here we are. So, weird, but we are here to mastermind about an influencer mastermind. I'm feeling slightly awkward right now, and I want to know, why shouldn't we feel guilty? Why does Daniel Moran, Ryan Moran, not feel guilty? There's no guilt in being a capitalist.
So
there's
what,
no guilt here. What has crafted this amazing person?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Where does it come from?
You know what's interesting is entrepreneurs get successful after a while, and then some of them become big liberals, where they feel guilty about their success and they feel they need to like give it all away.
I don't know anything about that living in LA.
Yeah, right. Well, where I'm getting is like there's like inherent guilt that happens sometimes when people become successful, and that's just an unnecessary belief. The reason is because like the greatest way to make change in the world is through a profitable business. Because business is ultimately the way that you distribute something profitably. Now in like the YouTube world, we tend to think of business as a way to have passive income so that you can be selfish and live a better life. But the function of business is so that you can distribute something that has a meaningful impact on someone else. Yeah. So the best thing you could possibly do for the world is for you to be rich and successful, for you to profitably distribute what it is that you want to share with the world, a product, an idea, a service, whatever makes a meaningful impact for somebody else. Like that is your greatest gift to the world, and you should be able to do it profitably. And the more profitable it is, the more good you are able to contribute to the world. And so there's no need to be guilty about that.
So here's by the way, guys, this beautiful, I don't know if there's, I'll throw in some B-roll afterwards, but we're at Ryan's lake house right here
this for B-roll.
Austin, Texas. But
I got some B-roll for you, John.
You're fucking crazy. But dude, actually this is really interesting, is like guilt to become successful, not after people become successful and they're like, we're giving it all away. Do you have to separate, like, do you have to get rid of guilt just to become successful? Like is there a relationship between guilt and success?
Money will amplify whoever you are. It's just like alcohol.
Heard that,
right?
Yeah.
So if somebody loves attention, and that's how they get love and how their ego is satisfied, you give them alcohol, they don't become a quiet introvert that's cute in the corner.
Sure.
They become the like the loud, boisterous person at the party. It's the same exact thing if you give someone money. Money is an amplifier, just like alcohol is. So if you have somebody who feels guilt about whoever they are, and you give them a lot of money, it's going to amplify that.
I've heard that before. I've been to Tony Robbins and stuff like that, but I want to hear what I mean, is that what you think in terms of like, you have to, so there's no relationship between guilt and making money in the first place and charging ridiculous prices, or is that really what you believe? Okay.
Of course not. There's absolutely no correlation between the two.
Okay.
Money is a measure of value. Like there's no guilt associated with creating value for other people. The end.
Okay. There's no guilt associated
with creating. So here is the big distinction. There you either believe that there's a fixed amount, and by me having this over here, you can't have it, or you believe that by me having this thing over here, it actually makes it easier for you to get it. Mm-hmm. So I do you either a bad thing by having this thing, because it prevents you from getting it, or it makes it easier for you to have your thing, because I've created a new path and changed your beliefs. You tend to either believe one or the other. Yep. I believe the other. I believe that there's abundance. And the only evidence we need is to look at the world 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. We have longer lifespans. We've solved more problems. We have higher standards of living. In fact, the lowest of the low in first world countries live better lives than rich people a few hundred years ago. Mm-hmm. Because you don't leave your house and die from cholera. So we live vastly better lives. That's abundance. That is value. So it's not just dollars. Value is subjective. It's quality of life. And we have higher than ever before in history, no doubt. So value is what we measure in money, and we use it as a way to exchange that subjective value, which is increasing all the time. So there's no guilt associated with creation of value, and that's what we're doing as entrepreneurs. We tend to think there's this pie over here, and I gotta get mine, but the truth is, you're making the pie. Like you just add more to the pie. and some of it comes to you.
I totally agree. Now, as somebody who's created, like, assisted 500 people in becoming millionaires, do you think intelligence has any? Do you think IQ or intelligence has any effect on?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't even know what the next question is, but yes. So yes, obviously, like intelligence is a variable. Now you can overcome a bunch of different variables. Like hard work is a variable. Intelligent people don't necessarily work harder. Hardworking people aren't necessarily more intelligent. It's just a variable in the overall equation. Now some of them are within your control. I would even argue intelligence is a little bit within your control. A little bit. Like you can do things to become smarter.
And I'm talking about the way people are born.
So
I'm not talking about the books you read or the college you go to. I'm talking about.
So you're talking about natural innate talent, like innate talent.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a variable, and you can't change that, but you can change a whole hell of a lot of other things, and those are things within your control. We do all this focusing on what we can't control. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of things that are, and you don't get rich or even improve your life or anybody else's life by focusing on the things that you can't control. You focus on the things you can control. And as soon as you double down on that, you can change whatever you want.
Now you invite a lot of ridiculously successful people. You've been around a lot of ridiculously successful people. You told me earlier that you really try to keep those 5 people around. You are the 5 people. You try to keep some really high value people around you. Are there any public examples of people you've personally met that you can say they don't have a lot of natural intelligence, but they have overcome it? And
oh man,
I mean, and yes, this is being broadcast on YouTube, but you don't need.
Grant Cardone doesn't have a lot of natural intelligence.
Grant Cardone
doesn't have a lot of natural intelligence.
How did he make up for it?
He works incessantly. He's a great salesman. He had a skill that he completely doubled down on. Like, I mean, he went completely all in on one skill set. So
persuasion or telesales.
I mean, sales is his.
Sales.
Yeah. So here's an interesting distinction. Like, intelligence is not necessarily associated with skill set. It's one of the variables. Intelligence is a variable. Like give me somebody with 170 IQ. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be successful. It just means that they're going to be really smart. So are most professional athletes incredibly intelligent? Maybe. I don't know. I've never been a professional athlete. There's plenty of people I'm sure on paper have a lower IQ than me and are more successful than me. In fact, I am probably held back by intelligence because I overthink things. Like, I have to get coaching from people who are like, you need to stop overthinking it. Like, you are being too smart about this. Yeah. So intelligence is a factor, and intelligence and conscientiousness are the greatest predictors.
Conscientiousness means self-awareness, or what do you mean by that?
Conscientiousness is, you might call it like personal autonomy.
Okay.
Like the ability to control oneself.
Okay.
Like the ability to control oneself and to use it effectively.
Self-control, where it's like, oh my God, my dog's sick, I have to, like.
That's the exact example I was thinking of in my mind right there. When your dog is sick.
Life issues, that's what I'm thinking.
What I'm getting at is, yes, those are variables, and they're contributing variables. And there are plenty of people who are dumber than you who have done better. And so we can't use that as an excuse.
Okay. So life issues are not an excuse. Guys?
Well, hold on. Well, sure, they're an excuse. Like, life issues, of course, life issues are an excuse. But they too are a variable. And we dwell on all the things that we can't control. But there's plenty of things you can control.
So I've talked to a lot of people who are going through this struggle. They've started different businesses, and a lot of life issues come up. They believe more than the normal person. Maybe there's divorce, car accident, computer battery overheated and broke down, and there was
didn't have the right socks
in their hometown. A million things, and it's been a stack. And it's been a stack, and it's held them back. They have sick, medical bills for their mom, and all this crazy shit.
Sure. I mean, that's real stuff.
And it's real stuff, and you can't, if your mom is sick and just got, heart attack and had to go to the hospital, and that, blah, blah, whatever. These are real things. This is a real situation. How does one
I can't keep looking in the eye because the sun is so bright. So I'm going to look at the camera. I'm going to look directly at you.
I can kind of see it in there. How do those not go factor into things. Somebody who's been held back with so many circumstantial things. You know, I haven't had many of those things happen in my life. How can you not feel guilty?
How do you not feel guilty?
No, you. I'm not talking to me. Well, I was talking to me when you were me. That's a difference.
So, like, how do I not feel guilty about
the fact that maybe how was your, I guess, how did you grow up? Did you grow up, would you say you grew up privileged? Did you have a lot of problems in becoming successful?
So is the nut that you're trying to crack if I overcame things, or is the nut that you're trying to crack
I want to know about your situation becoming successful?
Oh man,
because I'll say my own example. It was easy. I didn't have any dependents. I was on my own. I grew up I grew up in a fairly wealthy family. You know, I always did well in school. I didn't have a really hard
do you have some entrepreneurial guilt?
No. Who's being interviewed here? Who's being interviewed? Now, or maybe I'm playing devil's advocate because I'm trying to get some interesting shit out of you. Who knows? But I want to hear your story. I'm giving you my story as an example. Wasn't that hard? I want to hear yours.
So
we can talk about mine later.
Yeah, my dad was a school teacher. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until they split when I was like 11 or 12. Okay. And from that point on, we run reduced lunch programs. It's like government subsidized lunch programs.
Okay.
Right. At 12 years old, basically learned I got to go figure out my own stuff. Like no one was going to take care of me. No one was going to help me. It was on me, which by the way, I discovered later was a really unhealthy belief for the long term. But it made me very personally responsible in the short term.
Interesting.
Which was a good strategy as a teenager. Really holds you back when you're an adult, if you believe that it's all on your shoulders. But what that forced me to do was figure out how I wanted my life to be and what I wanted out of it. And we spend so much energy today trying to insulate ourselves from hard times. But hard times are the things that actually build us. And responsibility doesn't go away just because you hand it off to someone else. Like the responsibility of you to control and be autonomous over your own life, that is there infinite until you die, until you're gone. And we try to stack the deck to insulate ourselves from hardship or doing the hard work of responsibility, but it's still there. And you can either trade that and be less free, or you can create your own life. So for me, at 12, I basically became an adult. I started working at 12.
What did you do?
I umpired. I was a janitor at my church.
Oh shit.
At 15, then started working at Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins. Maybe 14 or 15? I think you had to be 15 to get a work permit, so I was 15. In fact, I remember this kid in the computer lab, his name was Scott. This was when AOL Instant Messenger was still a thing. He was messaging with somebody, and he read it out loud. Hey, do you want to get together after school today? It was a girl that he was dating in high school. And I'm like, who the hell has time to hang out after school? I didn't have an after school. I went and worked, and then I studied, and then I slept when I could, and did that through high school.
Wow.
And then started my first business at 18. Now here's the good side is that made me a very hard worker. The downside, it made me very dark and lonely for a very long time. Suicidal depression, feeling like everything was on my shoulders, in incredible darkness, right? And that's another challenge that had to be overcome. And overcoming those things is how you become the person that you are to be. That's how you uncover everything that you are. And so we spend so much energy trying to hide from that. And in reality, that is the path through. We've all got it. We've all got junk. You've got junk. I've got junk. You've got junk. We've all got it.
Yeah, Shinichi's got it.
And so the idea that we can use that as an excuse, like, yes, it's a variable. And it's also part of your uniqueness. And value is unique, inherently unique. So it's also the thing that makes you great.
Okay. That's, it sounds, basically you've done a lot of hard work. You've just constantly been working. So you feel I would imagine it's impossible to feel guilt if you've known you've always worked since you were 12.
Well, look, so these are not correlated ideas. The idea of working hard and not feeling guilty, these are separate ideas.
Okay.
Like you can be lazy as hell and be rich, and you still don't have to feel guilty if you've done that by producing other things that other people voluntarily want. There's no guilt associated with that. In fact, I probably feel more guilt about working too hard than I do about the money that's in the bank.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, because there's an opportunity cost to how much you work. I am now in my 30s unlearning all of the hard work that I did as a teenager and in my 20s.
It's funny, my family's from Indiana and Illinois, so I have that Midwestern, like, it's insane. I don't know, my parents taught me to be so hardworking, and it's just like, if you're not working hard, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that served them up to a certain point.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean it has to serve you. What part of Indiana?
Portage, the north.
All right, cool.
Steel mills.
Marion, Indiana. Lived there for 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Whatever.
Whatever, Indiana.
No, it's
Whatever, Indiana.
like uncles who are like Jim Bob, and like, you know, it's just really. My grandpa was
love
Big
Indiana.
Bobo. My dad was Little Bobo.
I loved the cornfields, man. Loved him.
funny.
Love Indiana.
So okay, so basically now you're a big proponent of capital. So like
Little, yeah.
a little bit. You
Little.
only founded the capitalism conference.
Right.
Now why?
Right.
And I remember you saying, like, why is it so important? There's lots of strategies you've used to, you know, become wealthy, and you've taught some of your stuff, and I teach people how they can start internet businesses and yada, yada, yada. But you've started Capitalism Conference not to teach a specific way to start a business, but as a way to connecting people and helping entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. What was the point of it? Because you'd been talking about this a little bit earlier, and I actually think it's really intriguing and would like to hear more about the impetus.
Yeah, so the impetus was realizing that if I really wanted to go where I wanted to go, which is my ultimate goal is to buy the Cleveland Indians.
Which is so weird. He's serious, by the way.
It's so weird. What's weird about buying the Cleveland Indians? Get out of my house.
You're in Austin now, bro.
So
Whatever.
you have never loved anything,
Baseball.
John. You don't know what love is. So I can tell you what love is if you want to know later.
Stop.
The
Cameras are rolling.
where are we going with this?
I wanted to hear what the impetus
Right,
behind
so midget
starting-
porn.
which is
So,
it's not a big it's not like I just don't think there's a ton of money in events. Like
There's not. No, there's shit money in events.
It's not
right.
like,
So no,
you know,
the impetus was
$10
this.
million business.
The impetus was this. I have this goal right here, and in our world of talking about internet businesses, like that's great up until a certain point, and when you get that, you say, okay, well, who's like building a real business?
I have money. I have a lake house. I have another house. I have
I own all of this because of what I did at the Capitalism Conference. So I had built
Oh, interesting.
I had done the internet thing, right? You can make $10,000 a month in your underwear or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I wanted more out of life, right? Well, then what? What are you after? What matters to you? What are you building that has a legacy to it? And I didn't even know how to ask those questions of myself. So in order for me to,
Why not?
because there was no one around me asking those questions. Like you are who you surround yourself with. We are tribal beings.
Who were you surrounded with? And are you living in Cleveland at the time? Or are you living out?
I was living here in Austin.
And who did you?
Other
surround
internet entrepreneurs who talk about hustle and grind and passive income, right? All great things. Okay, but I wanted to play a bigger game.
yourself? Okay.
And so to play a bigger game, I needed to get around different people. I didn't have access to those people. I did not have them, so I just paid them.
Beautiful.
So
It's
I
beautiful
just-
what money can do.
I found out, this was all of my retained earnings at the time. All of my retained earnings I put onto the table.
Are you serious?
All of it. I rolled all the dice on my first event.
You're freaking crazy.
I am not crazy.
Are you serious?
So this was my
nuts.
it was not nuts, and here's why. So
Don't ever put all.
So-
Yes. Go on.
so I would say it is a good investment to roll all your dice on a mentor. I just knew I couldn't pay the mentorship fee of the people I wanted to be around, but I could get them for a day. I get them for one day to all fly into Texas, and if I spent 3 days with those people and invited other people to join, maybe I could help mitigate the cost.
And what are the booking fees of some of these people? I'd imagine 25 to 250K.
Yeah, it's a good range.
That's a good range.
Yeah. So I was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on just to get these people
Yeah,
in.
it's not cheap.
It is, and that does
know,
not
I've seen the
factor in.
lineup.
And then we fed all the attendees and had like all the stuff, right? So,
Yeah, it's
this is not
a cheap thing.
this was not
liability, all
this was not a
insurance.
business to me. What happened then was over the next couple of years, I built a company to $10 million and sold it. Right? I started inspiring a bunch of entrepreneurs around the world, and the reason was because I started thinking differently. I started putting together the thought patterns of the sharks on Shark Tank and the Gary Vaynerchuks and the people who ran big enterprises. And as a result of doing that, your brain just fires differently. And so we can all think of a time where we met someone and everything changed. Like
100%.
Like there was a person. One of my buddies, Jeff Wood, says if you've hit a plateau, it's because you're missing a person, not a piece of information. Because how many times do you go watch a YouTube video, and then you're like, that was good information. What do I do now? It just becomes a longer to-do list. But when you meet a person, you change.
And you're talking physically, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, biologically we change. I mean, we literally change by literally. This is some trippy stuff right here. So if an alpha male dies, the second in line usually becomes alpha male, and there's a testosterone increase that literally prepares that person to become the alpha.
In humans?
In humans.
In humans.
In humans. So
how does that, like, Tony Robbins dies and I'm just going to get
whoever
somebody else?
If he had a second in command, if Jarek, his son, took over, there would be a physiological change in him of now leading that empire.
That's totally.
Isn't that crazy?
That's really weird.
And biologically, we're wired to be like predisposition for certain like fit in the tribe. So it is you change and you change your environment. It is a both and. So all this to say, who you surround yourself physiologically changes you. Biologically, physiologically changes you. And it changes what you think about, it changes what you normalize, it changes what your habits are. Everything is who. It's not what, it's not how, sometimes it's when, but it's always who. That, like the hack, like the hack to making $1 million is hanging out with people who make $1 million. Like that's the hack. Like, yeah, we could go through like these like algorithms and like systems and all of this. You are not likely to force yourself to actually will yourself into doing those things. But if you are surrounded by people to where that is normal and natural, you just become that person. You have to. The tribe says you have to. So I, every year, just book the people that I'm scared of, or the people that challenge me, people that make me play a different game, and I bring them into Texas, and I put it all on the line for the capitalism conference, right? I make my money in other businesses. Capitalism conferences I do for me and for my people in order to play a different game. And that's why my life has changed so much in the few years that I've been doing this, and why everybody who goes to that says the same thing.
Interesting. And dude, that is what's funny about this is it seems so easy. Like he's like, oh, this is a hack. Oh, just surround yourself with people who are like where you want to be, or like he's saying it's a hack, but it's like it's actually a real hack. And I'm gonna just kind of parrot this. My really quick origin story is I was working for an ad agency, and this guy Chris Daigle, who's a consultant for
good friend.
So he invited me to the secret society mastermind group, which is this guy Neil Strauss, this author Neil Strauss has this group that it was like $50,000 or $100,000 a year, and they were having a get together at they do once or twice a year at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood. They rented out the whole second floor. There's a bowling alley, a lounge, all this stuff. All these like uber rich, douchebag, super rich marketers. Who else can afford $100,000 a year for this like really?
That's hack. You got to be a douche to be successful.
Not a douche. But you know what I mean. It was Neil Strauss's group. So
I understand.
Yeah, but the point is, I was there and I met the guy who I felt imposter syndrome. I was like, oh my God. Every person I'm talking to, they're like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a pay-per-click manager, like analyst. Like it was crazy. But from there, I got one client, which ended up paying me $50,000 a month. They said, oh, we'll give you $10,000 a month or a percent of the revenue you create for the company. And that ended up becoming a $50,000 a month deal that lasted for years. And that was my start. But it was putting myself in this room. I was like, holy shit, I gotta get, like, how does this so dude, you're right though. The hack goes on. Now I want to challenge you, and I want to say, okay, that's cool. it takes 3 months of freaking work to put on a capital. Aren't there easier ways to put yourself? I mean, couldn't you just join an investment group and
Probably.
You know, couldn't you surround yourself with grizzled old deca millionaires?
Probably.
You know,
I wanted a very specific group of people when I started doing this.
self-help people. I mean, couldn't you just pay Tony Robbins like 100K platinum mastermind group? I mean, aren't there more efficient ways to do this than?
Oh, maybe.
I mean, did you not think about? You're saying like, you know, like, oh, like obviously.
I wanted
I'm
all
wondering,
of those people in one room.
You wanted specific
People in the same room at the same time. That's what I wanted.
Why so specific? I mean, because you probably could have got the same net worth or the same people in the personal development industry. You join Joe Polish's mastermind, or you join Dan Kennedy, you pay him $50K a year.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, first of all, those are two marketers, and I didn't want to hang out with other marketers. I wanted to be around business people. I want to be around empire builders. And so I wanted to be around specific people.
Who are those specific people, and why was it so important to have them in the same?
Yeah, sure.
rather than join a mastermind.
So three people that I booked for year one were Gary Vaynerchuk, Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, and Grant Cardone.
Wow.
Right?
Huge.
So I'll explain why now. I could tell you my personal feelings about all of them if you're curious another time, but I've talked about that publicly. Anyway,
yeah. Tell me the big why, and then tell me.
You can Google.
Things you learn.
You can Google my name and Grant Cardone for some fun stories. But anyway, those three specifically. Here's why. Gary Vaynerchuk has a similar goal of owning a major league or a major sports franchise. He's 10 years ahead of me. So I want to find out how he thinks differently from me.
10 years ahead of you?
He's 10 years ahead of me in terms of net worth and following at that time.
Okay.
So I want to know, okay, how does he think differently than me? And so if I spend a day with him, I think I'll be able to get 80% of how we're different. I want to know how he plans to own the New York Jets. I want to know what he focuses on in order to build that. What's the strategy that he plans on doing? I'd never heard him talk about it before. Now he talks about it publicly, but I think that was the first time. I booked Robert Herjavec because Robert Herjavec is following a model that I'm really envious of that I want to build on my route to owning Cleveland Indians.
That's the physical product.
That is having a stake in a company and having a platform that makes that company grow. The whole reason why I teach this stuff is because my model is I want to have a stake in a business and I want to impact that business by the platform that we build at capitalism.com.
Interesting.
Okay? And then,
so you want capitalism.com to be the Shark Tank of
physical
products?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And Grant Cardone claimed to own hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate, right?
He's also a marketer.
and so if that had been true, then that would have been a nice down payment on the Cleveland Indians. And he was 30 years older than me. Well, if I could reverse engineer that and start doing that now, that'd be really interesting. So those are the three things I learned from those specific people.
Now, what's the big we've been going on a little while, over 20 minutes or something. Yeah. What is the big? I don't leave the audience with what is the big thing that you learned from this overall, and not the. I know you did interviews with all these people or whatnot, but I'd say what was the big personal thing that you took away from this that maybe you haven't told anybody about, or I don't know, but what is the big overall thing where did it change your direct, because that's a big commitment to do this whole thing for this moment where you bring these people together.
Here's the thing that I've discovered that I've never told anybody.
Yeah.
We've all got insecurities, imposter syndrome, junk, things that hold us back, stories, problems, reasons why we couldn't. We've all got it. All of them. So Grant, regardless of my personal interactions with him, was an addict for years, overcame it. Channeled that into business. Is wildly successful now. That's fucking admirable. Gary, immigrant from another country, started with nothing. Nothing. And built everything that he has from absolutely nothing. So you realize that we've all got junk and reasons why we could make them excuses. I'm this gender, I'm this ethnicity, I had this setback, we've all got it.
Sure.
Some people overcome it.
Sure.
And that's a result of who you become. And that is usually the result of some genetic makeup, DNA, but it's mostly things that are within your control. What you listen to, who you hang out with, the books you read, the habits that you practice, and the way that you fast lane all of that is by changing who you hang out with. That's it. That's everything.
That's badass.
Thanks, I like you too. So much.
Dude, awesome.
Thanks for having me over, John.
Dude, my lake house. Is there anything else you want to?
Here in my lake house. Here in my lake house. Just bought this new John Crestani here. Is there anything else?
Yeah.
Buy my stuff and subscribe to my podcast at capitalism.com.
Cool. Dude, thank you so much. Dude, thanks for having me, man. This is fun.
This is fun.
And I love this sort of stuff. I love this. This is awesome.
And I love your beard.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. And if you enjoyed this and you want to see more, make sure you like, you subscribe, hit that notification bell, or comment. And if you'd like to actually learn how it is I run my internet business and make piles of money like this, make sure you click the link below in the description or in the first comment, and I will show you. Peace.